You're talking about how the federal government, is aiding and abetting this monetization of agitations, as it were. Now, you before now had said that the international oil companies, their refusal to relocate their headquarters to the Niger Delta was blackmail. What did you mean by that?
I didn't say it's blackmail. I said it's like a joint operation between the federal government, our allies, which are the IOCs, and some members of a cabal I may not be able to describe. But that I mean is, you see, basically in the Niger Delta, like we had stated there, the federal government had just said IOCs should move down. That shouldn't be strange. Like I had said in several forums out there, when you go to California, Mobile operates there, and our headquarters is around California. You go to around Houston, Texas, Chevron operates there. Our headquarters are there. If you even go to the UK, you discover that the oil companies are within the area where the resource is found, Aberdeen. You go to a place like Norway, the oil companies are not in Oslo. They are in an area called Stavanger, which is where the operations are. So you begin to ask questions. Why is it different here in the Niger Delta?
The big question.
The black question.
Yes. So what do you think when you ask that question?
Yes.
What do you find as the answer? Because some of the things that we hear is that the Niger Delta, as an environment for doing business, has not been conducive. We've seen numerous protests, and we even see that companies who hitherto had been in the Niger Delta are beginning to divest and are going offshore.
But that's an evil blackmail. Why I say so is, they will come and tell you that the Niger Delta is not secured. Yet the crime records, the police records show that the Niger Delta is still one of the most secured environments in this country. That's not my record. They will tell you that the Niger Delta is not secured, but yet the production of oil per barrel goes up. So when the production needs to go up, it's secured for the production to go up. But when it's time for you to relocate, it's not secured for you to relocate.
It's very practical.
No, but let me just finish.
Just before you finish,
it's as a result of bad politics.
I'm going to let you finish, Alfred, but I'm also going to be very practical with you. Quite a number of these oil companies had estates in places like Warri, in Port Harcourt. A lot of their members of staff worked there. They settled there for quite a while. Quite a number of them have had to relocate, even after retirement, because they have found it unconducive for even doing basic business. First of all, the environment for business is quite tough, and then not to add the security situation. The cases of kidnapping have been on the increase. In fact, they started right in the Niger Delta. Even in Bayelsa, where your governor has had a huge battle with kidnappers, hasn't he? And cultists as well. Isn't that right?
But I think this is not right. It's been blown out of proportion. But let me also ask
you. Is it?
Yeah, is it? Let me tell you why. We have had the London bombings. People are still in London. We had the Boston bombings. People are still there. Here in Abuja, we had Boko Haram bomb everywhere, but all the headquarters are still here. What I'm trying to tell you in essence is that though we don't support violence, though we don't promote it, but what is happening in the Niger Delta, it's not peculiar to the Niger Delta, and it's not anywhere close to any potent reason why the oil multinationals should have pulled out of the environment. I'm telling you here, and believe me, that they are pulling out of the Niger Delta is consequent upon bad politics. It is not
bad
true.
Politics. So people will say that if the environment is conducive, business. I'm not the one who coined this, but they said, capital is a coward. It flees. In the places where it is welcomed and it is treated well, it stays.
Isn't
that right?
It's not right in this circumstance. Let me ask.
I'm just curious.
Would you let me say this, please?
If the circumstances are conducive, why do you think that a businessman will want to run away from where he's
No, the question will be that why are the circumstances conducive for the businessman to up his production of oil, but the circumstances are not conducive for him to stay there and cause development to the region? But you must understand something, that if the Niger Delta is being developed by most of these oil companies, first with their presence in the Niger Delta and more of their corporate social responsibility, even the rate of what we describe the Niger Delta will reduce, because it will, their presence and the political, the economy, how it will affect the economy has a multiplier effect even on the socio-economy of the environment. So it is not right. Recently, you're talking about kidnappers. One of the most sophisticated, notorious kidnappers in this country was our next in Lagos. Evans, you know. That's not the Niger Delta. How many companies have left there? Recently, we had a ravaging of and rampaging of Lagos State by one group called Bado. Why have people not left there? So there is this constant blackmail. It's just that the Niger Delta has suffered from a whole lot of deliberate political demarketing of the region for political interest and not for the interest of the people. That is why we are not appealing, but we are talking to the sensibility of people, that almost everything they say about the Niger Delta is not close to half the truth. We are a peaceful people.
But what interest, I'm curious, what interest does anybody have lying about, you know, the situation in the Niger Delta?
They have economic interests. Let me tell you something, Malkbe. Let me explain to you.
In what
Let me
sense?
explain to you, Malkbe. Look at the Niger Delta. The oil comes out of that place, but almost all the companies that are dependent on oil, both the exploring companies and the related service companies, are not within the Niger Delta. So where are they? And wherever they are paying taxes to that government.
What you seem you're doing is blackmailing them to come back.
I'm not blackmailing them to come back. I'm telling them to do the right thing. What I mean is, you don't pollute an environment, you don't degrade an environment, and pay your taxes somewhere else.
What incentives are you offering? Because some people will say that even though we talk about the Niger Delta in general, it's not been the fate of all Niger Delta communities. For instance, Cross River is counted as a Niger Delta community, even though it's not producing any oil technically. It doesn't have these issues. Akwa Ibom is producing oil. It's it gets one of the biggest derivation revenues. It doesn't seem to have half as much as the problems as other communities in the Niger Delta seem to have.
Mark, but what
Why
you have
is that
said,
the situation?
Mark, but what you have said in other words is that you have just given me an example of how the Niger Delta can be peaceful. And that's what I've been trying to say. Like these kind of states, these places you have called are parts of the Niger Delta. So why are we not talking about it? Why are we describing the Niger Delta from a violence that has just taken place somewhere that is not peculiar to the Niger Delta?
If you say that these are parts of Nigeria, I think the question should be, why is it that these states are peaceful and other states in the Niger Delta are not as peaceful?
This is what I told you earlier, that the whole of the Niger Delta is peaceful. It's not as problematic as it's painted in the media. I've just given you an example of what happens in the Niger Delta that is not peculiar to the Niger Delta, that happens everywhere. It's just that it's blown out of proportion, and for the reasons I told you, that is for economy. Do you understand? It's disrespectful. It's not fair that people come to the Niger Delta in these other states like my Bayelsa, like Delta State, like River State and other places. You harvest the oil, you pollute the environment, and you pay your taxes somewhere else. You create employment somewhere else. I'm not saying this to the disadvantage of any other state. I'm saying that if this place is good, for you to up the production of the oil like you are doing, it's also good for you to enjoy from the proceeds of the oil, such as the social economy of the environment, the employment that it will create, the infrastructure that comes with these oil companies staying around that environment. And Malkbe, let me tell you this. It is not my records, like I told you. It's in the police record. The Niger Delta is not as violent as most other parts of this country. And I've given you classical examples all over the world, not only in Nigeria, where you have these things that happen in the Niger Delta that are not peculiar to only the Niger Delta, yet people go there and invest. So let us help not to demarket the Niger Delta.
Just quickly, the calls for restructuring seem to have taken the back seat now. I mean, at one point it seemed to be all the rave, but now it seems like it's just the embers that remain. How do you think that that conversation is going to wake up again?
The conversation will always be on the deck. We will keep it on the leg. Recently, we have made some visits and we'll continue to make some visits to reawaken the restructuring. Let me say this. Restructuring may mean different things to different people, but restructuring simply means bringing back the Nigerian conversation on the desk in a way that it will be more prosperous for us. For us in the Niger Delta, restructuring does not only mean taking back our oil and taking control of our resources to pay a percentage to the federal government. For us in the Niger Delta, restructuring also means moving away from the present oil economy to a non-oil economy. Restructuring reminds us of Dubai, that it's an example of an emirate state full of oil, but yet it has diversified into tourism, and it has a clean and better environment. And more, you may bear me witness that almost everything Dubai has artificially, we have it naturally in the Niger Delta. But let me lastly tell you
I'm
this.
afraid that I have to leave it there, and I'm going to try not to charge you for every time that you've called my name. But Alfred Kemekpado, thank you for coming on Hard Copy. Well, that's the program tonight, but it's not over until we hear from you. Please make use of the handles on your screen. We listen. I'm Mal Good night.